This is Lynn Schnebley with Educating with Wisdom, and I am Heaven's ambassador for the creating and protecting goddesses and archangels over life. Okay, I still have the shadow coming in. Oh, from that side. So be it. This is an addition onto another piece, and I prayed for God's grace and understanding because I'm very angry about the things that I'm finding, the lying going on, both in the Bible and the media and so forth. And so God gave me some grace. But the Shahi, or Jesus, we're going to say, led me to a different area. The Holy Spirit led me to question certain things. What ticked it off was, let's date it because I don't have the time that's going to be sitting on top of my screen. It is Tuesday, May the 26th. What ticked this off was we're going to look at the issues of Abraham, Sharia law, Sharian, the Koran, the Koren, the Greek, the Horian, and then we're going to look where both Jeremiah 23, which is cited for some sort of reinstitution of David, is not supported in Isaiah, nor is it supported in Micah or Amos. And there is a really big problem with the translations and the writing in all these texts, because it's like when women didn't sit down with men and say, no, that's not what it means, this is what it is. How come you're spelling it this way? I know you're playing games. This is some gematria going on here. Who knows what's happening? But the bottom line is that there's a lot of, it's a story. There's a lot of lying and storytelling. But behind it, because everybody is taking the Horian and the Koren and the Chabad Abed, and they're all using this female goddess, and then it shows up again in the in this ancient site in Turkey. Those are the people we need to be looking at, and everything in between. They're using it like a trail of crumbs that they've tossed in and out here, but they're all augmenting it, trying to get their power. So the bottom line is they all believe, and the term is Koran, which is Koren in Hebrew, and you're going to see that these are the female Hurrian women. And that means shining and illumination. Oh, okay. So let's come out of this for a moment. Let's get away from me and go right into the text. Here's Sharia, and it's an Islamic canonical law based on the teachings of the Koran. Now, this could also be Horan. Remember, when they die, if they've been a good man, they get so many Hurrian or Hurry or Curry women. Yes, these are the Hurrians, okay? So sometimes there's a KH that goes with this, or they have a QU that goes with this. Now, let's back it up here. What is this for? What does it literally mean? Known as Sharia, Sharia is an Islamic religious law that governs not only religious ritual, but also aspects to day-to-day life. Literally means the way. Hold on to that. The way. Now, what happened is that this ticked me off. This is the Hebrew. Shariam. Shariam possibly meaning two gates. The way. Notice Sarah is in this. There is Sharia, and I don't see where the spelling is. Let's go down here and see what Wikipedia says. Sometimes it's right, and I don't understand. Sharia. Okay, I don't quite understand their writing system. But here, if we look at the spelling, let's make it bigger. It's not spelled like that. One, sh does not have an ah that carries it. So there's no There's no this. That is an R. So it's just Shariam. So it's basically Shariam, which you're going to see later. See, they don't have any dots over it, that this is also Sarah. It shouldn't have an IM, but it means basically two gates. It's everybody, and if you look at where they're dealing with it, everybody is going back to Sarah's laws, and they're all masculating it, right? So it's really not spelled with that each here. And what ticked this off, what brought it to my attention, was when I was looking up Jared Kushner and I looked up his father. They made a donation to Shararam Hospital in Jerusalem, and I thought, why does that remind me of Sharia and Sarah? And so I went back and I looked at it, and sure enough. So when we talk about the differences, it's going to get really tacky here. Okay. There are two flips of the same coin. And when we look at Psalm 83, whoever is over the area of Israel, Judea, says that he is encircled by the Philistines, by the Ammonites, the Moabites, Tyre, okay, Phoenicia, Tyre, the Elamites, one other group, and then the Ishmaelites and the Hagarites, Hagar's people, and the Ishmaelites. And then they sum it all up and says, lots. So we're looking at Balaam, and those people descend and take over what is Israel. So what is Israel and Judea comes in, takes it over. The deals are made with Tyre. It links right down to Ishmael and the Hagganites and Lot's people. And that's where the story gets lost. And the Hebrews are part of the sea people because they are a nomadic, pasturing, wild group of people coming from the land of Ammon, which was Abraham's. And we're going to call him Abraham because actually there was no it was an I kind of sound. And the Islamics are correct. The Muslims are correct. It's not Abraham. It's Abraham. And those Hebrews are linked up to the Ebron, which are the Dacians. And that's how the red dragon makes its way into the Middle East and into Babylon through the Dacians and the sea people. Now, I mentioned in the other piece before I move on that the Dacians, some say that it was monotheistic, others say that it's not. They have one God. They're not afraid of dying. They believe that they're immortal. They raid constantly. They're constantly raiding. And what happens is when the volcano goes off in the Middle East, in the Mediterranean, it throws all these areas where women had more rights, and very often it was a matrilocal society. It throws everything off. There's a series of earthquakes and all kinds of things. They say it was the worst volcanic explosion that I think it's gone down in any written history. And it decimates the area in many ways, leaving it open for these very warring-like people that are you can call them the Aryans if you want, but it comes out of the Balkans. And you should think of Balkan as Balkan, okay? The Balkans, the Romans. Think of it as the Balkans. And it completely changes everything. Now, they were already changing in this area. They had been doing so for a long time as men took on more and more, and they abscond the role of women in the role of women in the divine. They made the female divine far more war, prostitution, sex, lust, which is not what the original was. So men do that to women. Okay, let's go back. So here we have this, and you're going to see this combination of sari. All right. If this were plural and you wouldn't have the AIM, you would just have IM. So there's something wrong here. There's something wrong in this entire setup. It's not this sound beforehand. It goes, there's no break in the SH. It's not sha'arium. It's not like the ariums. This is what they're saying, because this whole group that's coming through is coming through not just having raided through Turkey, but it comes through the Iran. So we have this whole kind of Aryan theme going on here with and they're stealing everything from Sarah. So the actual Hebrew for the plural would not have an A there, and it wouldn't have another vowel here, and it would be Shireen. But they have augmented the A for the feminine, and they've given something else. Here we go. All right. And interesting, you can also have Hari or Hori coming out of here if you drop the S, and sometimes that is dropped. So here we go. Let's see where it's dropped. Judges. The first Heber, which begins to discuss, there's the Heber River as well. They let you know that they're completely separated himself from Cain. They are completely, and a brother-in-law of Moses. These are, that they said when the Hebrew came through that they were warring, they were outlaws to the Ammonites that were already there. Outlaw meaning they sided with the sea people and they were decimating the Ammonites, the civilized Ammonites on top of that. And they warred their way going through and hit upon this area that was more peaceful. Okay? So what happened is the Hebrew came down, found a group of outlandish, as I said, outcasts that were pastoralists that were in that area, and no different than Rome having taken in outcasts, and then going in and raping the Sabines. The same kind of story going on here. And those are the Hebrews. And they later tell you in Isaiah 14 that they're going to enslave the rest of the world. They're going to be coy and enslave the rest of the world and bring everybody back to this united Israel, and we're all going to be their slaves. So, of course, Isaiah also spent 3 years running around naked. Yeah. Okay. What do I have here? Oh, the Song of Deborah. I was looking up where that term, the goat, came from. Here we go. Koran can also be spelt with a K. Originally, there was no Q. All right. Aramaic is a newly written language. It hasn't been, nobody's been writing in it for more than 2,000 years. It's not an old language. They wrote in Aramaic, they wrote in other, it would have been Hurrian, Hatti, other languages, but this is, so they play between the Greek and what's going on in that area. So sometimes it's KH, sometimes it's QU, sometimes it's K, sometimes it's just H. They play with language as well. All right. So here we have Koren or Koren. Remember, we've had Sharia or Shirime. All right? There we go. And there's a lot of stuff going on here. That's the same. Now let's go back to the Kori, who were also the Kori, because ancient Greek did not originally have an H, so they gave it a KH, so it's Kori. That came later. And these were freestanding, the boys were called this, and they said Apollo was, an Apollo is a play on Apolli, which means my my air, the air. So they wanted to Apollo, oh, and Apolli is always naked. The Koros are always shown naked, and Apollo is supposed to be the great Koros versus the Kori. But although I don't know what the gender of that is, where are we here? Shariah. Oh, we're going to get into the gender of this, the Koran Jerusalem Bible. That is a feminine plural ending. For them, that means light, shining. Now, the Koran have their laws, and then they have their Sharia, which is the gate, which is stealing and taking from Sarah. And then remember, we're the Nasaret, which is what Jesus was. And then we have the Koran, and then we have the Koren, and we're looking at the Ishmaelites and the Hagarites and lots of people. That's what you're looking at. All right. But Rome and Greece had augmented that as well, and their main concern was to decimate anything that looked remotely female and holy. Holy and female meant you were completely obsequious and stupid. And like breeding stupid cattle and breeding stupid cows, that's what's been bred. And then the men tend to be more violent. You've bred it. Here we go. So the Hurrians were also the Koreans. Well, we'll just take a break and look that up. Okay, so let's look at the Hurrian language. Here we have the Hurrian, also called the Hori, also called the Hari, also called the Horites, the Hori, the Kori, and there's a whole series of them. They're also called the Kari because Greek doesn't have that combination, or the Hor, and they're all the Hurrians. Now the Hurrians, the original Hurrians, are not the Matini. That comes later. So we're going to talk about the original Hurrians here, and then there's the Matini. So imagine you can have a KH, Kari, and or Hari, or, and all of these things are proper combinations. Now there's the Hori. What do we have here? Oh my goodness. The Horis are women and men in the Islamic eschatology who will accompany faithful believers in paradise. Muslims differ as to whether they refer to believing men or women. And who are these? A beautiful young woman, especially a virgin, accompanying the faithful in the Muslim paradise. Remember, they are just always downcast. They get 70 or 72 of them, all right? And they have absolutely no opinion in anything. They just stand there and they wait for you to have sex with them. And the next morning, oh, there's never any children. Nobody menstruates. And the men have a constant hard-on. I have all these mechanical computer women that are waiting for them. Right. Okay. We'll get a her. Now let's remember, because that is the breakdown of Horus, of Horu, that is in Egypt. And that was the Hurrians. It was not Apollo. Of course, they believe Apollo was the Vesperian, but Apollo wasn't. Apollo was a slut god, just like Greek Athens was. Raisins, not virgins. No, it's not raisins. Let's get real here. They're trying to save their skin. They can't. They've gone into all these wars looking to die and have these women. That's what they sent young men into. All right. Koran. Here we go. All right. That's feminine singular. I mean, that's feminine plural, just like Torah is feminine, right? Now I'd like us to look at Egypt, A. Vulture, which is normally feminine, that is A. And in the Hate, A means tongue speech. But A in Semitic languages means ox. And in Greece, here we go. A means vulture. Let's see if Adam is there. I mean, let's see what's there. Oh, here's Koren again. As a name, they think it means shining or beaming. By the way, Nori, which I always thought sounded like Hori a bit, in Genesis 8, you've been this way since I gave you my Nori. That also means flame, shining, illuminating. And, right, it's not since youth. So there's something related about Nori in Koren. The Koran literally means the recitation. Right? No, Gabriel did not. Koran means beaming, shining. All right. We're going to go into the different Bible because I need to make a slight correction. I thought the old JPS would have been more based on the Aleppo. The Jerusalem Crown Bible is based on the Aleppo Codex. I don't know how it can be based on the Aleppo Codex when supposedly the Aleppo Codex is missing. Part of it, all of Genesis and a lot of, most of the first 5 books. The Koran Classic. All right. So the JPS had the Masoretic text. All right. Is based on the Masoretic text. There we go. And of course, I do the scripture for all, and that is based on the Leningrad Codicy, which is also a Masoretic text. And I've seen that other text is online. Some of it is. Here we go, Israel. Now, it specifically says here that the Aleppo text, and then all of a sudden, presto changeo, after World War II, it is missing what happens. And it's missing all of the first 5 books until you get into part of, and it tells you, it all went missing. Much of Micah went missing. There's a lot of it missing. Here we go. Now we know it's not anti-Jewish riots. It's probably the Jews themselves that took it. They were destroyed in fire, but there's no sign of fire. Instead, accused members of the Jewish community of having torn the missing leaves and keeping them privately hidden because they did not want you to know the truth, and they knew that without having the Leningrad Codicy there, you would not be able to challenge what they were saying. So all these texts went missing. All right? Looks like a big, yeah, it does. It looks like a big nipple. Bad. And so now they're saying, no, it wasn't a riot. And so what's really missing now? Let's go see. Oh, yes. However, the community limited direct observation of manuscript by outsiders. So you could not really look at it if you were an outsider. especially by scholars in modern times. Pauly Kane, when revising the text Biblica Hebraica in the 1920s, tried and failed to obtain a photographic copy and forced him to use the Leningrad Codice instead of the. Okay? There you go. Made it the authenticity of the codex, and indeed doubted it was, though he agreed it was 10th century. So, all right. Concepts. Remember, here's shekel, and it comes in with the C, people. Let's make another one of these. Hebrews. Now, the Greeks are not completely right about everything, but Hebrews is the river, and it's actually spelled Hebrews or Avros, or if it's you want to make it more Middle East, it's Evros with an I, and it's Thracian. It's actually okay. Remember, these are the sea people, and they are attacking, and they make landfall where the Amor are in the Middle East. Here is Ivracha, Hebrew. Notice the difference for Hebrew. All right, Ibri, it can be an I or an I. Iberu, Iperu, Iberu. Now, this is where it caught my attention. Hebron suggests Ibos, which accordingly to the Blit means he-goat. He-goat. Okay, so let's take a peek at, this is going to link us up to the next, because when I snapshotted this on my cell phone, and we're going to look at the timestamp, and what I did, they immediately went in and changed the Wikipedia site. Hi, this is Lynn Schnebley with Educating with Wisdom. I see there's a shadow on here, so we're going to get over me because I want to get out of this. The ambassador for Heaven's creating and protecting goddesses and archangels over light. And I forgot to mention that there's an awful lot of changing of documents online, and they move the timestamps. But we're going in to take a look at the term of the Messiah, and what is the Messiah? And in fact, it means the deliverer. But the deliverer can also be somebody that delivers children and delivers your children into the next life, which is what that whole lost book of Nostradamus is warning you about. Not just warning you about, it's one of the sections that says this is now your next life, and it's not going to be in heaven. It's not going to be as another human being. For those of you that can't handle being human beings, and that's most of us, it will be as a lesser being, as an animal, as a whatever. And I've discussed this already at length, but let's go in and take a look at the issue of documentation and where we pick certain things up. Now, I've mentioned before that Nakabit comes from Hobbit, and the Nakabit was the white vulture. That was the goddess that was over in the Hobbit, which is Hobbit, all right, which is also brings us back into the Hurrians. As well, Horu, with the W at the end, in Egyptian means plural hor, and it actually meant the Hurrians, and they are the ones that are up or far away. It does not mean man. All of this was assumed as we begin marching through the age of men. And what the prophets are telling us when we look at the Shabbat, when we look at what we'll call the Nahide, pardon me, those 7 laws that Jesus and St. Paul speak of. What they didn't like, and you can see that they're actually, Jesus is actually holy, because what they did not like among the Jews, let alone the Romans, is he did not believe in temple sacrifice. Let me repeat that again. He did not believe in temple sacrifice. He believed in true repentance, restoration, and those things. That's what he worked with. 2, he didn't give men any out for sexual sin. So, for instance, for men who had sex with prostitutes, or men who had sex with their concubines, or men who had sex with their slaves, that was acceptable. Fornication was acceptable. It wasn't a death sentence. But women, it stopped right there. And what Jesus said is that none of it's acceptable. None of it will be allowed into heaven. And those of you who say that it's okay to do this will not be allowed into heaven. If we think about where we need to go into the future, the issue of Apollo is the issue of allowing the masses to make them happy to do what they want to do. And then there's a medical system out there that keeps...
Messages received from textandpeer.com.
There's a medical system that keeps putting patches on all the holes of his ideology. Sitting in the middle of the Vatican Museum for the Pope's room, in the middle of their government, is Apollo. So let's come out of this, and we're going to begin to see where some of the problems come from. But we're going to look at the issue of the Messiah and begin to look at tracking and psycholinguistics. Now remember, uterus, raham, in Hebrew is masculine. I mean, they took everything. Uterus, in Latin, is masculine as well. Excuse me, penis is not feminine. Uterus is masculine. Our breast, in Hebrew, Shaddai, which actually means my land, by the way, and they moved it over to Mountain and Breast, the goddess of the breast. Makes sense, as you lie down, you've got the mountains there, you know. They made that masculine too. So what men did is they went through and they appropriated all these things. What also happened, and it's really interesting because that Gobekli Tepe shows what I saw the first time, which was done about 11,500 years ago, if they're honest in what they're doing, and it shows a woman covering herself up, being modest. The whole Adam and Eve story, that she falls because she understands right from wrong, is nonsense. If we take a look at the beginning of Genesis, Adam is both male and female, which is reiterated in Genesis 5 in Hebrew. But God says you're going to be able to have the fruit of the tree, as well as the seeds coming off the herbs on the land. In the Garden of Eden story, there's just the fruit of the tree. They don't get the fruit of the tree and the seeds coming off the land until they leave. So let's go in and take a look at now the reason why I bring this up here, this is Priapus, very important for the Greeks and then the Romans, constant erection. He never gets satisfied, but he's over plants and gardens and things like that. Remember, the Greeks have already had interaction with the Egyptians when they're coming up with all of these things. This doesn't come out of nowhere. Min comes about after Nakhabat and after Horu, the original Horu, which again means the Horian going from the other side, and Habit. He too has the same kind of malform, and he too is doing the same kind of thing. And it's the first king, Scorpio, who worships him. All right? In fact, Amen could have... All right, here we go. Let's come out of this. Oh. Let's look at the ancient Egyptian. A is for vulture. A is for Nakhabit as well. A, in the Hatti, A is Alap, not Alaf, with an F, Alap. In fact, the original Aramaic is Alap, and Phoenician as well, no Alaf. The A there from the Hatti means speech, language, like literacy. Speech and language, the ability to communicate. This is the goddess that brings you up to heaven. You're going to see that scenario and the Telepi, in Turkey again. The Ammonites take it over and make it male. Who are the Abraham and the Ammonites and the Babylonians? Right, exactly. The viper here is going to be used for the father sign. That's the F sign. Interesting. All right. The lion is normally a female lion. So let's come out of this for a moment. The amazing name of Moses. Now, when we look at Hebrew and Aramaic, until the Greeks come onto the scene and then the Romans, there is no O. It's an A or an E. So they let you know related terms. All right? One of the terms that it's related to, child rescue, drowning in water. So it makes perfect sense. Artemis of Ephesus, which was actually hip-hop that the Greeks took over, she was part of the deliverer of children. She was over people and delivered children. Okay. And we know that Mariam does not mean bitter. Mary in Egyptian means beloved. Mary also, if we look at the town of Mary, had a storm god called Mary. But means mother. So it could have meant beloved mother. It doesn't mean bitter. Boy, what they do to women is incredible. And this is misogyny at its worst, remember. The name Misha is actually related to Muhammad. I mean, it's actually the origin of Moses. Notice there's Shamash there. Shamash goes back to the town that Min was worshipped in, Chemish. And this is the name of the god for the Moabites. Okay? Misha, saving salvation. And again, Artemis of Ephesus and Artemis was called to save women in childbirth, there we go. But so it has to do with birthing and where you go on to the next name. There is no male equivalent. Or where you go on to the next wife. The king of Moab, who burnt his son at the Israelites, who burnt his son. And that makes more sense. Because the Moabites and the Ammonites, that was Solomon's wife that he kept was an Ammonite, engaged in human sacrifice of children. So here's Shemesh. Let's come out of here. Now, this is a Barian hunter, and I just want to pick up this. I had this on from last night, but I was too tired to deal with this. The king of sacrificed his eldest son, King Misha. So, see, King Moses. And he does this right about the same place that they say Moses died. It gets really tricky. Because when you go to Psalms 83, and we'll see if I have time to pull it up, something really awful is being discussed in Psalm 83. And they talk about, the person in that psalm says that he is surrounded by the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Philistines, the Hagarites, which is for Hagar, the Ishmaelites, the Ebionites, and they are attacking him. And this is supposed to be King David. So that makes us think, did the kingdom at that time, was it attacked really by this other group who took over the land? Because from the Ammonites and Moabites, from the Ammonites, you are never supposed to take anything from them because of Balaam. They use human sexuality as enticement and wizardry and witchcraft. And that's exactly what happened with the Epstein. This is exactly what's happened with the English. And when they say in Revelations, when they talk about Ephesus and Revelations, they talk about the Noahide. when they talk in Revelations 11, they talk about the people who will not just destroy the earth, but corrupt the earth. And that brings us back to the Greeks and Apollo, who uses everything through entertainment to govern people, including his religion. So Apollo is not the Hori, and that's a whole different word study. Let's come back out of me. Let's come out of this. Ra. They have Ra, which is interesting because they take so much from Egyptian. They have Ra that means evil. Well, Ra actually, Resh means head. Ra is the sun. So why would it be evil here? These are people that are playing games. All right, Shemesh is related to Komish, by the way. This name looks like it's Hurrian, but they've already done studies on it, and they realize that that's not what the original name is. So let's come out of this. My heart laments for Moab, like my harp. Why would somebody be lamenting for Moab when they are truly the bad guys? And in 83, it goes on to say, and I'm going to bring that up in a moment, the Barians. Now, you're going to see that I got an email, or I got a notice that I could not make adjustments to my Wikipedia account, that I couldn't edit, and it came up Barian, which is interesting because I am challenging this entire area and what the impact that they had. They said it was going to be the Barian hunter. I don't think this is the case. What I'm telling you is that you can't trust. Here we go. Here's the Barian hunter. Why would they send me a message and say that I can't do anything with Wikipedia, which lets me know that they used that person's email in order to send me that message. Okay. Rose, Melech, King. I think it's, yeah. So they use that person's account. Let's come out of here. And I'm going to add that to that other piece. Misha, any expected deliverer. It's the person that's going to deliver you into your next life. That's what's going to change everything. So a midwife is actually a deliverer. Here it is, the Mashiach. Actually, Middle Aramaic, the Ha is feminine. Original Aramaic and Middle Aramaic, the Ha is feminine. It doesn't change until later Aramaic. The Anointed. It's, how many times was Jesus anointed by oil? Once, by Marianne of Magdalene. I've been anointed 4 times. Here we go. Let's come out of this. So we're looking at the Messiah. Remember, I held this up last night. It says that the page was last edited on May 20th, 2020, at that time. That was shortly after I went in. And what they had done, let's see. Mashiach. What they did is they went through and changed the fact that they had the female queen. a savior or liberating group, the Mashiach Messiah. All right, so let's see. Christos is inappropriate. Absolutely. So the next time you see that Mashiach, so they went through and they changed it. And they changed it. So I'm going to add this to the other one so that you understand how they monitor me. Etymology, Tiberian Messiah. This is actually originally all feminine endings, like Sarah, anointed. So where's the whole thing about the king? It's not there. They all of a sudden removed it. So let's take a look here for a moment. Then we're going to come out of this. King. So let's see what they're going to say here. This now, again, looks slightly different. And what you're going to see, because I showed you that in the beginning, is something quite different yet. Now remember, I did King Messiah for this. This is showing up even differently on my cell phone. May 19th at 6:40. There we go. Okay. Right. Where's the whole term king? So let's go in and do King Messiah. And the same thing. Redirected from King Messiah. How about Queen Messiah? Put us on pause. Okay, so I sent this to myself yesterday when I wanted to go over it. That's when I sent it. Let's see if this will work. The Jewish King Messiah, in Hebrew that. Malika, there it is. See, they dropped all of that. Malika, Mashiach. Or in Hebrew. Now, they don't have the Malika here. Oh dear. That is queen. That's not king. Something's wrong here. Something is terribly wrong because this is what it's actually called. And they spelled it differently in the Hebrew. That's because there's no place in the Hebrew where it says King Messiah. There's no place. And when they referred to it, it was the Queen Messiah. These are the see, they blocked my user. Judaism. King or high priest, okay. So it's a king or high priest. Now it gets interesting. This is when I took the picture of it. I took it at 6:37. Again, so they changed it after I saw it initially at 5:30. And you're going to go back and see that because I have it where? Then I have to get going. Here. Okay, so I sent this one first, May 19th. That is Queen of Sheba. When it's the AT at the end, it means of feminine, construct feminine. Actually, the H is actually more of a feminine ending. So that's what I was looking at. This is what came up. It's as though they were stating, they blocked me on the 27th of March, 2020. Why would he block me? This was the same Varian Hunter that was in that Rosie. Why? Because they didn't like how I changed the piece on Hobbit? Or what I said? No, they didn't like what I said about Apollo. That's what they didn't like. So what happened is what had been there was the Meleka, which is queen. So verbally, because this does not show up, the Messiah does not show up in the Bible, the deliverer shows up. But the word queen is what they have always used. And you'll see that it can't come from the Davidic line because he doesn't have a Jewish mother. There's absolutely, you have to have a Jewish mother. And Jesse, they said, was screwing around. So Jesse's not as noble as you think he is. Okay. So, there we go. So let's come out of here now. Go to my favorite site, and then I have to say goodbye. Aside from the fact first we're going to look at Genesis 17. And he says, and I will make you, this is about Abraham, and I will make you an exceedingly, and I give you to Goyim, to pagan nations, and kings, that's the I am, that means kings, from you they shall come forth. Only Goyim. Everyone who claims Abraham as theirs is only Goyim. Now, what does it say about Sarah? And God is saying, Elohim, which is, this is a masculine ending, but this is feminine. Remember that O should be an A, Elohim, which is feminine. Goddess, Elohim to Abraham, Sarai, my princess, my Sarai, because Abraham keeps selling her off when he wants to get rid of her. He is saying, Elohim to Abraham, Sarah, woman of you, not shall call her my Sarah, my princess. that name of her, that Sarah name of her. So God is reprimanding Abraham for what he does to Sarah and how he mocks her and what he does to her. And I will, because she's just the Hurrian and he's a miserable Amorite. Abba, remember that Abba comes from Haba, which is the female goddess, and the Rahim is, what does that mean? It actually comes from the uterus. And I will bless her, and moreover, I give from her to you, son, and I bless her, and she becomes two nations. She becomes to the Goyim nations, which is Abraham's people. Maleki means my king, not kings. So she become to the Goyim nations, my king. My king, not of, there's no of here. My king, Maleki means my king. Two nations, she becomes to his Goyim nations, my king, people, and it can be an A there or an O. Peoples, from her they shall become. So they're going from Goyim to now God's peoples. Right this minute, under Abraham, whether it's Christian Abraham or Hindu Abraham, whoever claims Abraham, the only thing they are is a mishmash of Goyim. But now they're going to become part of God's peoples under her. And what does Abraham do in this story? Which is a code, it's a setup. He destroys her. So let's come into, take a look at this. Psalm 83, it's very telling. Because this is superimposed into a lot of other Psalms. And it's like somebody missed this. Song praise to Asa, Elohim, which is feminine with the little masculine, like that Jesus we see in Lost Book of Nostradamus. You must not be silent to you. You must not be. You are being silent. You must not be. You must not be quiet, God. That behold, one's enemies of you, they are clamoring. One's hating of you, they are lifting up their heads, the Rosh. On peoples of you, they are making crafty deliberations, and they are counseling on ones being secluded of you, ones that they've put aside. They say, go, and we shall suppress them from Goyim, from nation, and not he shall be remembered, name of Israel further. Now, guess who's not really Israel? Israel's really Jesus. That they counsel heart together on you, covenant. They are cutting tents of Edom and Ishmaelites. So they are cutting tents of Edom and Ishmaelites. Moab, remember, and Hagarites, Gibel and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistia. Now, a lot of these people, we have early Greeks, we have the people from the Balkans, we have Hebrews, ones with dwelling of Tyre, even Assyria, he is obliged with them, and they are armed to sons of Lot. Lot. Interlude, do you, to them, and we know that Lot is bare. Do to them as Midian. Now, Moses is all about Midian and finding Yahweh, and this becomes an entirely interesting discussion, which we are going to add. Okay. Thank you, everyone. This throws everything. Yeah, okay.